Prince Andrew will leave Royal Lodge only if Prince William accepts this condition. Buckingham Palace released a statement that would ripple through every newsroom from London to New York. It is with deepest regret that we confirm His Royal Highness. The Duke of York will be withdrawing from all remaining public engagements due to health reasons. The family requests privacy during this time. N. For the first time in the modern era, a son of the late Queen Elizabeth II was effectively erased from public life. Prince Andrew, long disgraced by scandal, and now reportedly diagnosed with a degenerative neurological disease, will never return to public duty. The royal household confirmed that his name has been removed from all active patronages, his security scaled back, and his public title reduced to ceremonial formality. The move was described internally as necessary closure, a polite euphemism for what many insiders call a quiet royal exile. Yet even as the palace asked for privacy, the silence carried a darker echo. Because Andrew's disappearance from the public eye didn't just mark the end of a career, it reopened a catalog of accusations, whispered investigations, and decades of unanswered questions that Buckingham Palace had long tried to bury. The statement framed Andrew's withdrawal as a matter of compassion. Sources close to the family revealed that he has been diagnosed with a degenerative neurological condition, one that will progressively affect his mobility and speech. He remains at Royal Lodge, Windsor, under medical care, attended by a limited household staff and frequently visited by his daughters, Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie. But even this sympathetic narrative came under scrutiny. The announcement was deliberately vague: no medical confirmation, no physician's name, no prognosis. Within hours, royal correspondents began to question whether the health disclosure was, in part, a shield, a final effort to manage the Duke's exit before more damaging information could surface. This was not simply about illness, said a former royal press officer who spoke under condition of anonymity. It was about containment. They wanted him out before something else came out. For months before the announcement, Andrew had vanished from the public radar. No appearances, no sightings beyond Windsor's gates. His name was quietly removed from charity boards, and even within royal briefings, staff referred to him only as the Duke, avoiding his first name entirely, a subtle but deliberate distancing. By mid-2025, he had become a ghost in his own family, barred from state events, absent from the royal calendar, and excluded from even private photo releases. The man once known as the Queen's favorite son now occupied a fading silhouette in the palace's rear octu mirror. When reporters pressed for detail, senior courtiers offered the same careful refrain: His Royal Highness is focusing on his health. Behind closed doors, however, aides spoke of a more ruthless campaign, a plan orchestrated by King Charles and Prince William to cut off the monarchy's most contaminated limb before the next reign begins. The royal family is performing surgery, said one Westminster insider. They're cutting out what they can't cure, and Andrew was the infection. The Duke of York's downfall has been chronicled so often it feels mythic. His friendship with Jeffrey Epstein, the infamous BBC interview, the $12 million settlement to Virginia Giuffre, and the loss of his royal patronages in 2022. But beneath those public scandals lay a darker web of influence and privilege that extended far beyond what most Britons ever saw. Leaked diplomatic correspondence from the early 2000s revealed that Andrew's tenure as UK trade envoy was riddled with conflicts of interest, including alleged deals involving arms contracts in the Middle East and private kickbacks routed through offshore entities. One former Foreign Office official described Andrew as a walking liability with a business card. While none of those allegations ever reached a courtroom, several internal memos reportedly vanished from government archives in 2011. Coincidentally, the same year Andrew was stripped of his trade role, and then there were the whispers surrounding his private finances. In 2019, investigative journalists traced a £1.5 million gift from a Kazakh oligarch's wife to Andrew's personal account, routed through a shell company linked to luxury property investments. Buckingham Palace denied wrongdoing, calling it a legitimate private transaction. But financial analysts saw something else, a pattern of secret cash flows consistent with influence esseling and soft corruption. The scandal faded after Epstein's death dominated headlines, but insiders claim that new evidence resurfaced in 2024, prompting an internal palace audit that has never been publicly acknowledged. Multiple palace sources have hinted that before the October announcement, a sealed report nicknamed the Windsor Dossier circulated among senior courtiers and the king's private secretary. It allegedly contained new testimonies, emails, and travel records connecting Andrew not only to Epstein, but also to two other international figures now under U.S. investigation for financial crimes and human trafficking. A senior aide familiar with the document described its contents as politically lethal. The palace, facing potential exposure, chose discretion over confrontation. They decided it was better to make him invisible than to make him accountable, the aide said. A sick prince draws sympathy, a guilty one brings down a crown. For King Charles, whose reign has been defined by restraint and reform, Andrew's condition provides a grim but convenient resolution. The palace can now close the book without public spectacle, no prosecution, no hearings, no televised disgrace. Behind the scenes, Queen Camilla reportedly pushed for the move months earlier, warning that the public cannot forgive what the palace refuses to condemn. Her position aligned with that of Prince William and Princess Catherine, who have spent years rebuilding public faith in the monarchy through transparency and service. This, then, is not just a family matter. It is a purge, disguised as pity, the final stage of the monarchy's campaign to modernize its image by quietly removing those who tarnished it. And for Andrew, it is the cruelest irony of all. The man who once wielded royal privilege as a shield now finds himself protected by silence, not as an heir, but as an embarrassment, too sick to punish. While the public remembers the infamous BBC Newsnight interview in 2019, as the moment Prince Andrew's credibility collapsed, insiders say the real rot began years earlier and was methodically covered up by a palace, desperate to protect the crown, no matter the cost. As Andrew retreats from public view citing illness, what emerges is not just a man in decline, but a carefully orchestrated campaign of suppression, payouts, and erasure that shielded him from accountability, even as evidence stacked higher behind gilded doors. In 2004, a quiet scandal brewed at Sandringham House, the Queen's beloved country estate. A housemaid, just 19 years old, resigned suddenly and left the country without warning. Internal records showed she had filed an internal HR complaint, naming HRH, the Duke of York, as having acted inappropriately while under the influence of alcohol. The file was buried. No media covered the departure. 2 weeks later, royal accountants processed a £72,000 relocation and employment transfer fund, a euphemism, one insider claims, for hush money. The maid's complaint never reached the press, but a private investigator, now retired, says he was hired by a rival tabloid in 2005 to track her down. She refused to speak. "She said only one thing to me," he recalled. "You'll never win against a prince. They erase people." In 2008, during Andrew's now controversial tour as UK Special Trade Envoy, he spent time in Toronto, where reports of lavish after-hours parties surfaced, involving private clubs and foreign dignitaries. One such evening involved a Ukrainian-born Canadian bar manager, who later claimed in a sealed court affidavit never made public that Andrew had crossed multiple lines of protocol and consent. Her statement, obtained in 2023 via leaked court transcripts, revealed she was paid $400,000 CAD to sign a non-disclosure agreement brokered by a royal-affiliated legal team in London. The funds were routed through an offshore foundation linked to Sunninghill Park, Andrew's former residence. When asked why the palace never commented on the incident, a former MI5 liaison officer replied bluntly, "Because the job of the monarchy is not truth, it's survival." By 2011, after Andrew's association with Epstein became increasingly public, Buckingham Palace launched a secret risk management protocol codenamed Operation Mirror Wall. Its purpose: to identify, suppress, and settle all non-lethal but reputationally fatal vulnerabilities connected to the Duke of York. Led by a now-retired Lord Chamberlain, the operation maintained a private database of past travel companions with inconvenient backgrounds, non-disclosure agreements paid through third-party intermediaries, legal threats from foreign nationals, footage and photos buried in media buyouts, primarily involving European tabloids. One internal memo, dated June 2012, chillingly read, "The Duke's profile must be managed as a legacy hazard, not a strategic asset." In 2024, a data leak from HSBC Private Bank, Geneva, exposed a set of dormant accounts belonging to two trusts controlled by Prince Andrew. One of the accounts had received over £2.7 million between 2002 and 2010 from a company registered in Dubai, whose CEO was later indicted for laundering money for known traffickers. The palace refused to comment, but anti-corruption watchdogs, including Transparency International UK, flagged the account history as consistent with consulting schemes used to disguise personal enrichment through unofficial diplomacy. And while Andrew lost most of his public titles in 2022, his financial empire remains largely intact, built on decades of soft influence, protected silence, and unbreakable sovereign immunity. So why now? Why declare Andrew's retirement under the veil of illness? Sources close to Prince William and Princess Catherine suggest that pressure to modernize the monarchy has reached a breaking point. The younger generation has long viewed Andrew's continued presence, even in the background, as a silent toxin, corroding public trust. According to one former aide, William said it best in a closed meeting last spring, "If we want to lead a moral institution, we can't keep shielding immorality." Palace strategy shifted. The solution was not confrontation but containment, a staged retreat, a medical shield, and above all, a quiet disappearance. With Andrew fading from view, many wonder what will remain of his legacy. A military title stripped, public trust destroyed, family bonds frayed, and a growing body of sealed files, secret settlements, and royal documents waiting for the day when historical review becomes legally possible. "We will learn more about Andrew in the future," said a royal biographer, "but only once it no longer matters. Until then, his exile remains both punishment and protection. A tragic ending not just for a prince, but for a monarchy still haunted by what it chose to conceal." For all its rituals, the British monarchy is also a machine, one finely tuned for optics, longevity, and adaptation. And in 2025, as the crown weathered its most volatile decade since the abdication crisis, it moved with surgical precision to eliminate its deepest liability. Prince Andrew, Duke of York. His final removal was not emotional, nor accidental. It was a calculated operation of institutional preservation, orchestrated by three central figures: King Charles III, Prince William, and Princess Catherine, each bringing their own motive to the table. Together, they executed what one palace insider now calls the quietest, most effective royal execution of the modern age. Sources confirm the operation began in earnest during the royal family's annual summer retreat at Balmoral Castle. But this was no holiday. Behind closed doors, senior members of the firm Charles, William, Camilla, and Catherine convened a series of strategic meetings described by aides as tense but decisive. What triggered them? A confidential memo from the Crown's legal team, warning that U.S. authorities may soon reopen sealed records in connection to international trafficking cases, some allegedly naming Andrew in peripheral correspondence with known enablers of Jeffrey Epstein. The legal risk was minor, but the reputational fallout, if leaks occurred, would be catastrophic. William said one thing that ended all debate, a staffer recalled. "If there's even a 1% chance of another Epstein photo on the front page, we end this now, not next year now." While Charles had long preferred to isolate rather than eradicate his brother, the situation demanded something more final. Privately, the king summoned Andrew to Birkhall, his private Balmoral residence, and laid out the terms. No press conference, no confrontation, just a firm declaration. "You are no longer an asset to the monarchy. Your service is done." According to leaked internal notes from the Lord Chamberlain's office, Charles authorized permanent cancellation of remaining patronages, removal from all internal succession protocols, ceremonial, cessation of all royal-funded travel and security, except for illness-related care. The phrase used was chilling. Complete operational redundancy. It was not punishment. It was management. For Prince William and Princess Catherine, the purge was personal and ideological. William, a future king already burdened by the fragility of public trust, saw Andrew as a stain on everything he hoped to rebuild. Catherine, equally invested in public service and youth protection, had long regarded Andrew as beyond salvaging. In a private strategy session held in Kensington Palace in late August, Catherine reportedly asked, "If we forgive this, what message do we send to every survivor who's looked to this family for moral leadership?" Her intervention reframed the issue not as a scandal, but as a spiritual and civic betrayal. From that moment, the tone of the operation shifted. What began as damage control became a moral reset. With the decision made, execution moved swiftly. In September, palace press officers conducted a digital audit, scrubbing Andrew from active royal.uk listings. Over 40 pages were archived or redirected, including patronage profiles, past speeches, and multimedia appearances. His name was also quietly removed from royal event planning templates, Jubilee retrospectives, and 2026 coronation draft logistics. Insiders refer to it as the digital vanishing. By October, even his coats of arms and personal royal insignias were removed from select ceremonial materials, a subtle but telling demotion. Andrew was now a prince by birth only, not by function, role, or narrative. Interestingly, no televised statement was issued. No interviewee. Instead, the palace allowed the news of his illness to soften the blow, framing Andrew's disappearance as a humane withdrawal, rather than a forced retreat. Public sympathy surged briefly, until investigative journalists connected the dots between his illness and the timing of ongoing financial disclosures involving overseas trusts. They've learned from the Diana era, noted royal analyst Julian Northam. They no longer fight scandals with denial. They let silence speak, then quietly take the chess piece off the board. Not everyone agreed with the purge. Princess Eugenie and Beatrice were reportedly devastated, especially as they were not consulted beforehand. An insider described their reaction as betrayal compounded by abandonment. Sarah Ferguson, Andrew's ex-wife and longtime defender, was livid. She allegedly called Camilla directly to accuse her of engineering a royal death sentence. Camilla's reply, now infamous among staffers: "This is not death, it's mercy." The Queen Consort, whose private charity work focuses on survivors of abuse, was a firm supporter of Andrew's removal, having long questioned why he remained half-protected after the Epstein disaster. Ultimately, the purge wasn't just about removing a scandal. It was about redefining what the modern monarchy stands for. Charles, William, and Catherine are now aligned in one belief: the crown must no longer serve the individual, it must serve the public. And if that means amputating a royal limb, so be it. This was the moment the monarchy stopped being a family business, one aide said, and started behaving like a constitutional institution. When the gates of Royal Lodge closed for good on the public role of Prince Andrew, many assumed the worst was over. That the disgraced Duke, diagnosed with a neurodegenerative illness, had finally vanished into quiet obscurity, out of sight, out of scandal, out of headlines. But as with all things tied to Prince Andrew, silence does not equal closure, because what remains isn't just a man in exile. What remains is a maze of unanswered questions, sealed files, and millions of pounds unaccounted for. The monarchy may have surgically removed Andrew from its living image, but it has yet to bury the skeletons. Despite having lost official duties, military affiliations, and public funding, Andrew still enjoys an unusual degree of comfort courtesy of a vast and largely unexplained private fortune. While his only official income was a modest naval pension and a reported annual stipend from the late Queen, estimates suggest that Andrew's net worth exceeds £40 million. A large portion of that is tied to offshore real estate in the UAE, including a palatial residence in Abu Dhabi, registered under a holding firm linked to a Saudi investment group, trust funds and private accounts in Guernsey and the British Virgin Islands, many of which were established prior to 2008. The mysterious 2010 sale of his Sunning Hill Park estate to Kazakh billionaire Timur Kulibayev for £3 million over market value, despite the property having stood empty and deteriorated. This financial puzzle has long been a sore point within royal oversight circles. Multiple former Treasury advisors have stated off the record that no royal family member should be this wealthy without public or parliamentary accountability. But the monarchy, reluctant to provoke internal war or air dirty laundry, has remained evasive. Adding to the opacity are sealed documents connected to the 2022 Virginia Giuffre settlement. The terms of the out-of-court agreement remain confidential, but multiple U.S. legal experts have confirmed that the files contain correspondence, travel logs, and Epstein-related calendars that were never publicly released. Royal courtiers fought hard to keep these under legal seal, citing national security and personal privacy, but investigative journalists and a few disillusioned palace aides claim that those documents include references to 2 other royal family members and a high-level staffer who allegedly facilitated Andrew's travel abroad. Worse yet, a source close to U.S. prosecutors claimed that Andrew's name appears over 50 times in the unredacted Epstein flight manifests, sometimes alongside aliases used by international figures. To date, no full list of Epstein's private jet passengers has been publicly authenticated. But the pressure is mounting. A pending Freedom of Information lawsuit in New York could soon force the release of at least some sealed logs, and the palace is already bracing for impact. Though Andrew's illness is real, the timing of its public disclosure, just days before new court filings in the U.S., has raised eyebrows. It was a PR masterstroke, says Clara Kensington, a UK-based crisis communications analyst. By announcing his degenerative condition first, they flipped the narrative from scandal to sympathy. The announcement also strategically neutralized future legal risks. It signaled to investigators and the media, this man is no longer functioning. He cannot testify. He cannot be summoned. He is not a threat. But not everyone is convinced. Critics argue that illness has historically been the monarchy's favorite exit ramp used to quietly silence royals embroiled in controversy. From Edward VIII's abdication sickness to Margaret's mental health narrative, the palace has often blurred the line between health and politics. Unlike his predecessors who fell from favor, there is no redemption arc for Andrew. He will not write a memoir. He will not appear on talk shows. He will not give interviews. He exists now in a state-sponsored limbo, his image preserved in family portraits, his name removed from all else. And yet, even from exile, Andrew remains a threat. Because as long as documents exist that implicate him in global abuse networks, the crown is vulnerable to renewed scrutiny. In Windsor, Andrew now lives out his days surrounded by nurses, armed guards, and legal handlers. His daughters visit in private. Fergie, ever loyal, is said to maintain an emotional quarantine, blaming the monarchy for Andrew's decline rather than his own choices. But the public sees something else, a reckoning long overdue. The man once known as Randy Andy, the Falklands war hero, the Queen's favorite, the patron of countless causes, has become a symbol of unpunished privilege, moral decay, and systemic denial. And though the monarchy has exiled him, it cannot erase the questions he leaves behind. For Princess Beatrice and Princess Eugenie, the permanent removal of their father from public life marked not only a personal heartbreak, but a quiet, brutal shift in their standing within the royal ecosystem. Though they were never senior royals in the traditional sense, without formal duties or taxpayer funding, both sisters had always believed in their role as soft power surrogates, presentable, charitable, and fiercely loyal to the Queen. But with Prince Andrew's downfall now sealed, that subtle space has collapsed, and in its place, a monarchy that is being reshaped from the inside out, one that no longer protects lineage at the cost of legitimacy. Sources close to the York sisters confirmed that neither Beatrice nor Eugenie were informed in advance of the final Balmoral decision that removed their father from all remaining royal functions. They reportedly learned about the medical withdrawal through a second-hand briefing the same day it was released to the press. It was like watching their foundation dissolve overnight, said one aide who has worked with both sisters since childhood. One moment they were daughters of a duke, the next they were relatives of a liability. Their public silence since the announcement has been telling. No statements, no appearances, no Instagram tributes. Even as Beatrice celebrated her daughter's birthday in private, and Eugenie posted only abstract images of nature and hope. Behind palace gates, emotions reportedly ran high. Eugenie is said to have broken down in a closed-door conversation with the Queen consort, accusing the firm of political erasure. Beatrice, ever more composed, voiced her grief as disappointment. You don't just cut off a man like a limb. You treat him. You rehabilitate him. I'm one. But to the modern monarchy, there was nothing left to treat. What many observers have missed amid the Andrew saga is this. His removal created a power vacuum, one filled swiftly and decisively by the women of the royal family. Princess Catherine has emerged not just as the public face of empathy and modernity, but as a symbol of active moral leadership. Her role in the final push to sideline Andrew was not symbolic, it was strategic. Then there's Princess Anne, the most disciplined royal of her generation, who is said to have told the Privy Council, bluntly, "You cannot reform rot, you must remove it." Anne's no-nonsense approach reportedly influenced King Charles's decision to strip Andrew of ceremonial roles, including the final loss of his position as Colonel of the Grenadier Guards, a move once thought politically impossible. Meanwhile, Lady Louise Windsor, daughter of Prince Edward, has begun quietly taking on public engagements. Sources indicate she is being mentored directly by Catherine, potentially as part of a new wave of non-senior, apolitical royal women representing Britain abroad. It's the rise of the duty-first female royal, notes royal historian Dr. Helena Prescott. Eugenie and Beatrice are seen, however, unfairly as too connected to scandal to fit this vision. And public opinion toward the York sisters is deeply split. Some commentators and viewers, especially on social media, have expressed deep sympathy, calling them victims of a legacy they didn't choose. One viral post read, "Beatrice and Eugenie were punished for loving their father. That's not a crime, that's loyalty." But others are less forgiving. Memories of the sisters' lavish royal weddings, private jets to exclusive resorts, and silent complicity during the Epstein years have resurfaced, especially in contrast to the humble, reform-minded branding of William and Catherine. "Silence is protection," tweeted one royal watchdog, and for years, they protected Andrew. The optics are clear. Beatrice and Eugenie are now in the royal gray zone, not removed, not fully included, but adrift. Despite whispers that Eugenie may move permanently to Portugal, and that Beatrice is considering stepping back from all public-facing royal work, palace aides say no formal changes are planned. Why? Because formal acknowledgement would reignite the scandal, something King Charles is determined to avoid. Instead, their status will remain ambiguous by design, quietly, sidelined, publicly acknowledged only in family moments like weddings, funerals, or coronations. There will be no redemption speech, no comeback tours, and for a monarchy obsessed with longevity, that ambiguity is not cruel, it's strategic. "The royal family isn't just about tradition anymore," said a former courtier. "It's about triage." When the final portrait is painted of the British monarchy in the 21st century, Prince Andrew will not be in it. Not because he didn't matter, but because, in the end, he mattered too much to be ignored and too dangerous to be remembered. With his complete removal, the House of Windsor has taken one of the most definitive internal purges in royal history, a break so total that not even abdicated Edward VIII faced such enduring erasure from royal function. But beneath the polished language of health withdrawals and public gratitude lies something much starker, a monarchy that has chosen survival over sentiment. And in doing so, it has redefined what royalty means in the modern era. Since Queen Elizabeth II's death, King Charles III has been under pressure not only to modernize, but to restore institutional trust. In sidelining Andrew completely, the king didn't just clean the house, he signaled a cultural reset. The crown is no longer a shield for flawed men. It is a platform for service, transparency, and selective visibility. The motto isn't "never explain, never complain." It's "never compromise." As one senior royal aide put it, "If we defend Andrew, we lose the Commonwealth. If we protect him, we lose our relevance." The monarch's advisors have reportedly adopted what's now being called the Windsor Doctrine, a framework that prioritizes merit, moral standing, and institutional optics over bloodline loyalty. This doctrine, in practice, means more public-facing roles for Catherine, Princess Anne, and Lady Louise, reduced privileges for peripheral royals, including Beatrice and Eugenie, permanent suspension of all royal-linked funding for individuals under legal or ethical scrutiny. It is a monarchy moving not only toward efficiency, but ethical sanitization. The effort to fully extricate Prince Andrew from royal life has come at a steep cost, financial, emotional, and symbolic. Over £12 million in legal settlements, paid quietly, likely with private estate funds. The severance of long-standing military affiliations, creating controversy among veteran communities. A global press cycle that linked the monarchy to sex trafficking and international abuse rings. But the most profound cost is reputational. For decades, the royals claimed moral authority through tradition, discipline, and discretion. Andrew's scandal fractured that image. Now, to rebuild it, the crown must overcorrect. By refusing to publicly acknowledge Andrew's deeper wrongdoings, or to transparently investigate them, the royal family has chosen containment over confession. It's a strategy rooted in survival, not closure. And while it may stabilize the firm in the short term, it leaves behind generational trauma and a crack in the institution's moral mirror. In Andrew's absence, a new royal trinity has emerged. Prince William, now uncompromising in his public ethics, reportedly led the charge behind his uncle's final removal. Princess Catherine, newly honored by Pope Leo XIV as the Unity Monarch, is being positioned not just as a royal consort, but as a global figure of compassion and modern monarchy. Princess Anne, the constant, the iron fist of duty, serves as the institutional anchor holding the monarchy together. Together, they represent a monarchy built on transparency, action, and boundary enforcement values that the public increasingly demands. They are not perfect, but they are trusted, and in the wake of Andrew's exile, that trust is the most valuable currency the crown holds. There are those who believe Andrew got away with it, that his exile, however total, is not punishment but protection. That royal immunity, while perhaps quieter now, is alive and well. And truthfully, they're not wrong, because unless the sealed documents are released, unless other names are exposed, and unless survivors are heard in full, there can be no real justice. But in the context of monarchy, justice has never been a destination. It's a balancing act between tradition and reform, scandal and silence, duty and damage control. The public may never get all the answers, but they've made one thing very clear: they're watching. Today, Prince Andrew resides in seclusion, no longer listed on the official royal website, no longer invited to public events, no longer honored in ceremony or memory. He is, in all but name, a ghost prince. His legacy is not carved in stone but hidden in legal documents, redacted emails, and blurry photographs from a world that the royal family has tried desperately to forget. But as history shows, ghosts don't stay buried forever. And for a monarchy now betting its future on transparency, unity, and moral authority, Andrew remains the shadow they must continually outrun.